Have you ever noticed that the louder you broadcast your life, the quieter your strength becomes? One confession after another, you pour out your heartbreaks, your missteps, your secret fears, and without knowing it, you're teaching your own mind to believe you're powerless. Every syllable cements the very reality you're desperate to escape. So today, let's try something radical. Hush the noise, reclaim the wheel, and steer your story instead of narrating your wounds. We're not talking about burying pain or shutting down every honest conversation. We're talking about protecting your energy, about refusing to hand your power to anyone who happens to be within earshot. Because each time you ramble, make excuses, or cast yourself as the victim, you carve the bars of your own mental cage. That ends here. I've gathered 13 Stoic insights to help you recognize the moment you should close your lips and open your mind. The ancient Stoics would say, master your words, master your fate. Apply these lessons and you'll stop speaking from scars and start living from strength. Ready? Let's dive in. The tale of Isabel. Stay with me, because what begins as an all-too-common spiral takes a turn you won't forget. Isabel, 34, excelled at one thing, narrating every fragment of her existence. A spat with her partner? Posted. The groceries she forgot? Posted. The night she felt the sky falling? Live-streamed, hashtags and all? Talking felt like therapy. It felt like progress. At first it looked effective. Friends lent sympathetic ears. Followers flooded her feed with heart emojis and "you've got this" gifs. Isabel called it authenticity. In truth, she was spinning on a hamster wheel made of her own words. Then came Clara, best friend, no filter. "Isa," she sighed, "I love you, but it seems you enjoy the anguish. Do you actually want out, or are you cozy inside the drama?" The comment landed harder than any breakup. That night, lights off, phone on airplane mode, one old quote surfaced in Isabel's mind. "The more you describe a wound, the slower it knits." So she disappeared, digitally at least. No more midnight rants, no more instant replies in group chats. Friends worried something was wrong. Ironically, everything was finally right. For the first time, she processed silently, felt fully, and resisted feeding pain with constant narration. During that hush, a colleague handed her a slim, weather-worn book of Stoic meditations. The cover was plain, but the sentences inside felt surgical. Speak only when it improves the moment. Choose not to be harmed and you won't be. What you allow into your mind shapes who you become. Isabel saw her pattern with brutal clarity. She wasn't storytelling. She was self-programming, installing the software of defeat with every complaint. No one forced her to hit record. She volunteered. So she experimented with a new discipline, deliberate silence. Not the repressed, simmering kind, but the mindful pause that separates impulse from intention. Whenever drama begged to pour out, she inhaled, counted to 3 and asked, "Is this genuine help I'm seeking or a quick hit of validation?" It felt awkward, lonely even, but astonishingly liberating. Her next conversations changed shape. Because she spoke less, every word carried more weight. People leaned in, they listened. And Isabel, no longer tangled in endless disclaimers, discovered she had space, mental acreage, for action. That's the heart of lesson number 1. Guard your narrative. Speak with purpose or remain strategically quiet. If you must share solutions, not self-sabotage. In the minutes ahead, we'll unpack 12 more Stoic lessons that build on Isabel's breakthrough, principles that will challenge you to trade oversharing for inner command, to replace victim monologues with decisive movement. So ask yourself, are my words constructing a fortress, or are they draining the moat and lowering the drawbridge? Stay tuned, because the next page just might change how you talk and how you live forever. Isabel's quiet changed nothing outside her, yet it changed everything within. It wasn't silence for the sake of emptiness. It was silence that made space for presence. Her troubles, arguments, bills, the lingering ache of old wounds, stayed right where they were. They simply ceased to be the headline of her life. Instead of narrating chaos, she began rebuilding order. What worked the alchemy? Not hush alone, but the doorway hush opened. She stopped reciting a script she no longer wished to star in, and that, whether anyone named it or not, is pure Stoicism, the art of choosing what deserves a voice. Stoics remind us that transformation often means speaking less, acting more. When you quit repeating what hurts you, you finally start constructing what heals you. From this moment, live from strength, not from scar tissue. If this resonates, tap subscribe, join our inner circle, and drop a single line below. I am a Stoic. I will stop speaking from the wound. Make it your public pledge. Lesson 1. Speak ill of yourself and the world takes notes. Every time you mutter, "I'm useless, I never get it right," or "life's against me," you aren't venting. You're broadcasting a blueprint the world will follow. Words are a megaphone for identity. Rehearse them long enough and they harden into reality, not because they're true, but because you've declared them so. Picture meeting someone new. Within minutes they confess 3 times that they're hopeless at love, indecisive, and quit every project. Even if they're grinning, your brain files them under unreliable. That's exactly what you do to yourself each time you self-deprecate. You train others, and worse, you train you, to treat you according to that verdict. Words don't merely describe, they define. Each bleak sentence is a brick, and brick by brick you raise the prison you'll later call fate. 2,000 years ago, the Stoics grasped this. For them, language was no ornament. It was a lever of power. Epictetus put it bluntly, if people speak ill of you and they're right, correct yourself. If they're wrong, ignore them. But what if the voice slandering you is your own? Choose your self-talk with intention. This isn't motivational fluff. It is one of the fastest ways to sculpt the person you aim to become. Stoics practiced disciplined silence. Yet when they did speak, every word carried weight. They refused to reinforce weakness with language. Shouldn't we do the same? Ask yourself, are my sentences forging a fortress or laying chains? Guard your narrative, speak with purpose, or let purposeful silence speak for you. You now understand the weight of your words, how they shape not just how others see you, but how you see yourself. Let's go deeper. Lesson 2. Not everything deserves an explanation. You don't owe the world a backstory for every scar. You don't have to explain your silence or your boundaries, or why you're no longer who you used to be. One of the most liberating truths the Stoics taught is this: you are not obligated to explain your transformation to people committed to misunderstanding you. But we often do, out of guilt, out of habit, out of fear that silence will be mistaken for arrogance. And so we speak, and speak, giving away precious energy, trying to justify decisions that needed no justification. What if you simply chose peace over proof? Imagine how much calmer your days would be if you stopped defending your path to people who aren't walking it. Every time you try to explain yourself to someone who doesn't genuinely care, you're trying to plant seeds in barren soil. The Stoics lived by a different rule. Let your actions speak. Let your results whisper what your words once screamed. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." There is deep wisdom in restraint. The less you explain, the more powerful your presence becomes. People may be confused by your silence, but confusion is their burden, not yours. So next time you feel the urge to explain why you're walking away, why you've changed, or why you're protecting your peace, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this for clarity, or out of the fear of being judged, because often the moment you stop explaining is the moment you truly reclaim your life. Lesson 2 reminded us that not everything demands an explanation. Now let's see what happens when you translate that insight into daily living. He never staged a press tour to prove he'd evolved. His habits testified for him. That's your first takeaway. You don't need a timeline post to validate your growth. You don't have to itemize the wounds you're stitching closed. You're under zero obligation to live stream every stumble and recovery. In fact, the quieter your road, the sturdier it becomes. Silence clears the static. All that remains is forward motion. Admittedly, the instinct to broadcast is strong. We crave applause. Yet the more energy you pour into announcements, the less remains for execution. Ever notice how describing a blueprint can drain the will to build it? So start small. Keep a few projects entirely to yourself. A new sunrise routine, the novel you just outlined, a fitness goal that will take a year to mature. Shield them from idle chatter, not from fear but from respect. Sometimes silence is the highest expression of self-care. Before you share anything, ask, am I celebrating or am I fishing for approval? Saying I'm content with my progress is serenity. Reeling off every detail so someone will clap is insecurity wearing a smile. Most of all, practice advancing without narrating, improving without justifying. The breath you'd spend explaining could fuel another rep, another page, another disciplined dawn. And when you labor in quiet, your work develops deeper roots. People don't have to know what you're crafting. They'll sense it soon enough, and even if they never notice, you'll know. Lesson 3. Shut your mouth. Let your actions speak. Speech is cheap. Anyone can vow to transform. Monday, I'm up at 6. I'm deleting every app. I'm launching $1 million brand. Then the alarm mysteriously fails. Instagram still scrolls and the economy becomes the villain. Intent without movement is vapor. Real impact comes from steady, word-light consistency. The friend who doesn't boast, yet you can see the shift. New choices, sharper posture, a calmer aura. They didn't broadcast the change. They embodied. Marcus Aurelius distilled it. Perform every deed as though it were your last. He didn't say promise it well, he said do it well. To the Stoics, eloquence without follow-through was self-deception. Epictetus hammered the point. Greatness is measured by acts, not words. Talk without action is smoke, and the Stoic aims for granite. Don't confuse this with fearful silence. The goal is to stop hemorrhaging energy on explanations you haven't yet earned. Guard your plans the way a farmer guards seed, buried in soil, not blared through megaphones. Remember Greta Garbo? At her peak, she embodied global glamour, receiving mountains of fan mail. One morning, without warning, she walked off the stage and into a life of deliberate obscurity. She never wrote a memoir to justify the exit. She simply lived it. And that, too, is Stoicism in motion. Her quiet exit wasn't a retreat. It was a declaration. No press releases. No drawn-out explanations. Just deliberate withdrawal from the spotlight. For decades, she lived far from cameras, far from chaos, far from the noise. She never fed the gossip or broke her silence for the sake of public curiosity. And in that silence, her legacy didn't fade. It grew. The more she held back, the more powerful she became. Her absence became more respected than any speech could ever be. And what does that mean for you? You don't need to be a global celebrity to choose a powerful silent path. Stop announcing every decision before you've lived it. You don't have to tell the world you've joined a gym. Just show up and train. You don't have to declare that you're rebuilding your confidence. Just begin, even if no one claps. Let your growth speak before your voice does. And when your energy shifts, when you react differently, when you prefer solitude over noise, you don't owe anyone an explanation. Your evolution is personal. It's sacred. It's not up for approval. When you feel that pull to prove something, pause. Ask yourself, do I want to be seen or do I want to be whole? Because more often than not, the thing slowing your transformation is the obsession with proving you're transforming. But real change, it doesn't need applause, it needs discipline. So protect your energy, build quietly, talk less, act more, share less, evolve more. And if someone asks why you've become more silent, just smile. Because you know your life is no longer built on speeches, it's built on decisions. Words fade, actions remain. And when you stop explaining and start becoming, the world listens without you having to say a thing. Lesson 4. Change the story you tell yourself, and you'll change your life. There's a voice inside your head that speaks louder than anything you say aloud. It's there when you rise, when you fail, when you face doubt in the mirror, and the story it repeats. That's the story you live. It's not the thoughts that flicker once in a while. It's the ones that echo daily. That tired script. I always mess up. I'm not enough. I never get it right. You say it without thinking, but that's the problem. No one else forces you to whisper those words. You do, quietly, constantly, and each time you reinforce an identity that keeps you stuck in place. Modern psychology confirms what the Stoics knew all along. The way you speak to yourself is either your greatest ally or your most destructive enemy. Christine Neff, a leading voice in self-compassion, found that speaking to yourself with kindness, not flattery but clarity, can elevate your self-worth, sharpen your thinking, and strengthen your resilience. This isn't about reciting cheesy affirmations. It's about ending the habit of punishing yourself for being human. So pause for a moment. When you mess up, how do you respond? Do you curse yourself or stay by your own side? Sometimes the wisest decision is not to say something positive, but to say nothing at all. To interrupt the harsh thought before it becomes a weapon. To stop normalizing the script that bruises you from within. Not every thought deserves airtime. Not every emotion deserves narration. If the words in your mind are hurting you, set a boundary with yourself. That silence? It's self-respect, it's space. And in that space you can ask, where did that thought come from? Do I really deserve to be spoken to like that, even by me? Picture your mind as a journal, filling page after page with your internal dialogue. If every entry reads, I'm a failure, this is too hard, I'll never be enough, then that becomes the story you read. And if you keep reading it, day after day, what kind of character do you start playing? Now ask yourself, who would I become if I started writing something else? The Stoics didn't speak often, but when they did, it mattered. Epictetus once said, it's not things themselves that disturb us, but the judgments we make about them. Apply that to yourself. The judgments you make about you can either crush or lift you. Marcus Aurelius echoed the same truth. The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. That's not a pretty phrase. It's a compass. One that points inward always, because the way you speak inside becomes the world you live outside. When you begin to challenge your inner beliefs and talk to yourself the way you would speak to someone you truly care about, something inside begins to shift. It's not some overnight transformation. It's awareness, it's respect, and it's consistent practice. Start by noticing the phrases you repeat without realizing. Don't let them slide by silently. Pause, respond, and replace them. You don't need to shout affirmations or make dramatic declarations. Just you, in quiet moments, gently redirecting your inner voice. It's like switching the tracks of a train. From the outside, no one sees a difference. But you know it's heading somewhere new. Change "I can't handle this" to "I'm learning." Swap "I always fail" for "I'm improving with each attempt." Even if those changes seem small, they begin to rewrite the script you live by. Do it the Stoic way. No noise, no drama, just quiet, steady discipline. And if someone notices your calm, your newfound stillness, and asks why you don't complain anymore, just smile. That's the sign. You don't need to explain it. It shows, because, yes, what you repeat internally becomes what you reflect outwardly. Change the story, and you'll change the self that emerges. Lesson 5. Understand the power of every word. Once in a forest, a group of frogs was hopping around when two of them fell into a deep pit. The others gathered at the edge, and seeing how steep the drop was, began yelling, "Don't even try! You'll never make it, it's too high, you'll only wear yourself out." One of the frogs heard their words, lost hope, and gave up. Exhausted and defeated, she stopped trying, but the second frog kept going. With each warning she heard, she jumped harder, tried from a new angle, pushed again and again until finally she escaped the pit. The others were stunned. "How did you do it?" they asked. She smiled and explained she was deaf. She thought they had been cheering for her the whole time. This simple tale holds a profound truth. The words we hear, and even more importantly, the words we say to ourselves, can either empower us or destroy us. Epictetus once said, "First learn the meaning of what you say, then speak." In other words, don't treat language as noise. Use it as a compass, because every time you speak, you're charting a course. And that course will either lead you upward or pull you down. The Stoics didn't speak recklessly, not out of fear, but out of reverence. They knew that careless words were like arrows shot without aim. You might wound someone else and or yourself, or you might simply waste your strength. To them, words were not separate from action. Words were action. There was no gap between what they said and how they lived. That alignment was their armor. Today we're drowning in language. We repeat phrases out of habit, out of culture, out of stress, and without realizing it, we poison our own mental space. Phrases like, "This is a disaster," or "I'm terrible at this," might seem harmless, but each word carries a charge, a direction, an emotional echo. When repeated, even jokingly, they leave marks. Think of your words as drops of water falling on stone. One drop means nothing, but thousands day after day can wear through granite. That's what careless speech does. It erodes your spirit slowly, invisibly. This isn't about forcing positivity or becoming some robotic optimist. It's about not speaking destructively. Speak with truth, but also with purpose. Ask yourself, does this sentence bring clarity, or does it just fuel my frustration? Is it building something, or just venting aimlessly? And remember, your words to others matter just as much. A single sentence from you might be the only light someone hears in their darkest hour. You get to decide, will it uplift or crush? A Stoic chooses their words with care because they know one word can open or close doors in someone else's mind. So here's where you begin. Observe. Listen to yourself. Become aware of the phrases you say without thought, because often they're not even coming from the present moment. Our last lesson reminded us that words fall like water on stone, shaping character drop by drop, so guard them carefully. Now let's bring that insight inward and outward. Old phrases often echo from wounds, not from the present moment. They survive on autopilot, repeating stories that no longer fit who you've become. Change them. First, mind your tone. Saying, "This is hard," is honest. Saying, "This is impossible," is surrender. Admitting, "I made a mistake," invites growth. Calling yourself a disaster cements shame. Tiny shifts, massive impact. Next, remember the virtue of silence. If what you're about to say won't clarify, build, or encourage, why say it at all? Quiet is often wiser than the finest argument. It's the space where true intention can breathe. Treat words as sacred. When you speak, let it matter. When you listen to yourself, let it lift you. Sweep out stale phrases that keep you small. Speak with intention, or not at all. Because your language reflects your character, and choosing it well reshapes how you see yourself and how the world sees you. Lesson 6. Not everyone can hold what you carry. Have you ever shared a pain only to watch someone shrug? Offered an exciting idea and met a flat stare? Explained your change and received a mocking grin? It feels like talking to a wall that throws your words back, twice as heavy. Trying to pour your ocean into their teacup drains you. You explain, rephrase, soften your voice, yet nothing sticks. The truth? Not everyone is ready to understand you. Imagine hurling yourself against a locked door. Your shoulders bruise, your energy bleeds out, but the door stays shut because the key is on the other side. That's what happens when you seek validation from someone who doesn't share your values or your journey. Planting seeds in cracked earth yields nothing but frustration. Often the Stoic choice isn't to push harder, it's to grow quiet. Epictetus put it plainly: if you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. Brutal. Yes, but freeing. He meant that real growth includes being misunderstood and deciding you can live with that. The Stoics saw relentless self-justification as a subtle bondage. The need for external approval makes you a servant to opinions. Freedom begins the moment you stop requiring others to applaud your path. This doesn't mean blocking the world out. It means discerning. Know when to speak and when to keep your counsel. Know which conversations deserve your breath and which deserve your absence. Sometimes silence isn't repression. It's protection, conserving the energy better spent on building what matters. So here's the golden rule: stop spending fuel trying to be understood. Spend it forging the life that will one day need no explanation. Lesson 6 taught us that some doors stay closed no matter how loud you knock, so save your breath for building. Lesson 7. Guard the seed. Let deeds speak. While you're busy explaining, others are busy advancing, and you came here to advance. Each time you overdress a half-formed idea with words, you invite outsiders to handle what's still tender, and their opinions can infect the process. Remember, a seed germinates underground. Dig it up too soon just to show progress and you kill it. So when someone doesn't get you, don't force the issue. Not everyone must understand your pain, your vision, your evolution. Breathe, smile, keep walking. When a new passion lights you up, pause before sharing. Ask yourself, am I seeking connection or applause? If you're in the thick of deep inner change, shelter it. Sometimes the best support is silence. The most potent statement is none at all. If constant explanation is the entry fee to stay in a room, you're in the wrong room. You are not alone. There are others moving quietly, eyes forward, requesting no permission to feel differently. You'll meet them. Until then, don't shrink to fit. Don't plead to be understood. Don't dim to be accepted. What you carry isn't for everyone, it's for you. Lesson 8. Talking soothes, doing transforms. Sound familiar? You tell a friend about the next big project, how fired up you are, how this time it's for real. And for a moment you feel victorious, as though the summit were already behind you. Spoiler, it's a trick. You haven't climbed, you've just commented. Studies show that announcing goals lights up the same reward circuits as achieving them. Dopamine, endorphins, an unearned rush. Derek Sivers explains it well. When you broadcast plans, your brain registers progress and relaxes. Why push hard if you've already collected the social reward? Picture a mountaineer who climbs a few meters, then hikes back to town to brag. Will he ever reach the peak like that? Often. We don't need more motivation. We need less talk. The Stoics knew it. Identity was forged in action, unseen, not in proclamations. Marcus Aurelius never declared, "I shall be a wise emperor." He simply ruled, confronting conflict, admitting mistakes, acting. If you must over-explain before you've lived a truth, perhaps the truth isn't solid yet. Harsh but honest, the more you discuss what you will do, the less you actually do. Not because speaking is evil, but because you're harvesting applause before sowing labor, comfort as escape. Real momentum springs from commitment. Acting in silence hardens resolve. When no one watches and you still show up, train, write, build, you lay stone on stone. No external cheering, just private fidelity. That consistency doesn't hinge on approval. It's internal, unshakable. And silent effort carries a seldom noticed bonus. While you work in quiet, expectations stay low, distractions stay out, and results speak louder than any pitch. By the time the world notices, the roots are already deep. Lesson 9. Do more, say less. Listen twice, speak once. Quiet effort preserves energy. No convincing, no justifying, no point-by-point replies. You simply move. While others debate, you advance. While timelines fill with bold claims, you practice in private. Here's a practical test. The next time a new plan lights you up, keep it off your lips. Write it down, act on it, water it in silence. When it has roots, then decide whether to share. Announcing seeds too early exposes them to cold opinions. They wither before they sprout. Talking isn't the villain. Conversation can heal. But if you speak more than you act, you sculpt an imaginary self that hurts when reality doesn't match. So skip the motivational speech until your shoes have actually crossed the starting line. Skip the epic quotes until you've taken the first step. Do more, say less. Let your effort dress itself. Let change announce you, because words can soothe, but deeds transform. Life shifts not with declarations, but with consistent motion, proving in silence what others only proclaim. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Epictetus's quiet power. Ever wonder why nature gave us 2 ears and just 1 mouth? Epictetus phrased it like a child's riddle, but meant it as a strategy. Listen twice as much as you speak. Real listening grants a power most people miss. It reveals what others overlook, sharpens judgment, and guides your battles. You've met. The reverse. You share a worry, and before you finish, they hijack the stage with, "That's nothing, listen to my story." Exhausting, isn't it? Your tale becomes a mere runway for their monologue, and you leave feeling lonelier than before. A Stoic wouldn't do that. Epictetus, once a slave, turned enforced silence into virtue, teaching pupils to let words be tools, not shields. He would sit through long pauses, absorbing viewpoints he opposed, because quiet widens vision. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, could have been its loudest voice. Instead, his journals brim with questions and humble reflections, products of deep listening. He sat with scholars, soldiers, even slaves, to understand before responding. How often have you missed vital insight because you cut a moment short? Listening is not passive. It's an active choice. Humility, admitting you don't know everything. Wisdom, discerning when to hush and learn. Picture a room of 20 people. One holds the answer you need, but you're too busy filling the air with your own voice to let them speak. What did you lose? Flip the scene. You stay curious. Ask. Observe. Suddenly details emerge. Patterns. Surface decisions improve. Listening is training in the shadows. When you finally talk, every word lands heavier because it rests on understanding. Silence can also be strategy. Not every remark deserves a rebuttal. Some comments are bait. Joining the fray costs composure. Silence is not cowardice. It's control. Stoic practice for today. In your next conversation, aim to listen a fraction more than you speak. Don't interrupt. Leave a breath between their last word and your first. Ask one extra question. Judge 1 degree. Less. And value people who truly hear you. They are rare. People may forget what you said, but they won't forget how fully you listened. Choose words that matter, save many for later, and let attentive silence do the heavy lifting. Our last point reminded us, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen twice, speak once. Keep that ratio in mind as we tackle the next trap on the path. Lesson 10. If you live on applause, you'll starve on silence. The deadliest side effect of sharing every move is mistaking applause for progress. When cheers become fuel, discipline decays into dependence. Your craft turns into performance, your process into spectacle, until the only voice you hear is the echo of the crowd. Today, everything is posted, broadcast, announced. Some people can't take a step unless someone watches. But the strongest part of you isn't what the timeline sees. It's what you do when the room is empty. Let me confess, years ago, I spent 3 months preparing for a major life shift. Study, training, a detailed plan. Just before launch, I told everyone, this is it. Congratulatory texts poured in, dopamine spiked, and then nothing. I'd rewarded myself before the work began. It took another 3 months to restart the engine. Sharing wasn't the sin. Sharing for validation was. Once the applause hit, my brain filed the task under done. Lesson learned. If external recognition is your oxygen, you suffocate the moment it's gone. The Stoics never acted for claps. They acted to align with virtue, even if virtue stood alone. Marcus Aurelius reviewed his flaws each night, not for likes but for growth. He wrote, "True glory lies in doing what deserves to be written, and writing what deserves to be read, even if no one ever reads it." Why shield your work from early spotlight? Because once it's out, every opinion can jostle you. Every cheer can trick you into easing off. Every jeer can throw you off course. Not every mind judging you is a clear one. So train yourself in quiet. When you hit a milestone, celebrate softly. Share later, if at all, so the achievement stays center stage, not the reaction. When a new idea sparks, keep it close. Start, adjust, refine. Speak only after roots run deep. When you catch yourself driven to impress, pause and ask, is this for me or for them? Most transformative work happens with no audience. And that's fine, because the work, not the witness, is what changes you. In the last lesson, we confronted the trap of applause, how seeking recognition can dilute your growth. Now, we turn inward again, to something even more sacred. Your trust. Lesson 11. Guard your trust like a treasure. You are not here to be applauded. You are here to evolve quietly, steadily, even when no one notices. So let go of the noise, let go of ego, let go of the urge to constantly share. Focus on the act, on the practice, on what remains when the spotlight fades and the room empties. Because if you can still move forward in that silence, you are the real thing. And now stay with me, because what comes next goes deeper than philosophy. This is transformation. Not everyone deserves your trust. Not every polished surface is gold, and not every smile is sincere. Trust is one of the most powerful offerings you can give, and one of the hardest to reclaim once broken. When you trust someone, you open a door, and if the person walking through doesn't know how to hold what they find, they may leave damage where they found vulnerability. Yes, I know, you're someone who gives wholeheartedly. You believe that if you offer truth, it will be met with truth, but reality teaches harder lessons. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts. Not everyone should be handed the map to your emotions. And most of all, not everyone should hold the key to your innermost self. Nature models this perfectly. Take bamboo. For 5 years it stays hidden beneath the soil. No sprouts, no visible growth. But below, it's building roots, deep, quiet, resilient. Then and only then does it grow skyward. Your trust should be like that. Quiet, grounded, slowly earned. Because if you offer it too soon to the first person who smiles, they may step on it before it's strong enough to rise. We've all been there. You're in a conversation. Someone seems kind, open. You share something vulnerable, a hard day, a quiet pain. They nod, then immediately turn the conversation back to themselves. That's nothing, I had it worse. You think that's bad? Listen to my story. And just like that, your pain becomes their stage. You're left holding an exposed piece of your heart, now ignored, maybe even dismissed. So pause and ask, why? Did I share that? Was it trust? Or was I just tired of holding it alone? Often we overshare out of emotional exhaustion, not out of genuine connection. But when trust is given impulsively, it can wound deeper than silence ever could. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus taught his students, observe first. Let time reveal a person's character, their respect, their restraint, their wisdom, not out of coldness, but out of care. Because some truths are only meant for those who have earned them. Seneca said it best, it is safer to avoid trusting than to regret having trusted. That's not paranoia, that's self-protection. That's emotional discipline, not isolation but discernment. Speak less, watch more. The ones who listen with care tend to be the ones who can be trusted most. Remember this, not everything you go through must be spoken. Not everything you feel must be explained. Sometimes silence isn't secrecy, it's self-respect. It's choosing not to give your story to someone who cannot hold it. So what can you do? First, listen. Pay attention to how they treat the stories of others. If they gossip with you, they'll likely gossip about you. That's your first clue. Second, test small. Share something simple. Watch. Do they protect it? Do they honor it? Or do they toss it into the noise? And finally, pause before sharing. Ask, am I saying this because I trust, or just because I want relief? If it's the second, write it down. Breathe. Wait. Because not everything needs to be said. And some things, most valuable things, are meant to be guarded in silence until they're strong enough to stand. In the last lesson, we were reminded that trust, like transformation, must be rooted in silence. Now, we go deeper into the realm of inner strength, where some of the most important battles are won without a single word. Lesson 12. Some battles are only won in silence. Yes, trust. But trust like the bamboo, growing quietly underground until the foundation is solid. Then and only then rise, because while not everyone deserves your trust, you deserve to be surrounded by those who honor it. And now we shift. This isn't just advice anymore. This is challenge. These final lessons are designed to awaken something deeper in you. So let's step fully in. Not everything in life needs to be shared. There are moments when the wisest response is silence, not from fear, not from weakness, but from clarity and self-respect. Some choices lose their strength when exposed too soon. Some processes don't need justification. They need protection. There are battles that can only be won when no one is watching. Why? Because certain transformations lose their power the moment you pause to explain them. When your progress is still fragile, even a slight opinion can shake it loose. Picture this. You're finally walking away from something that no longer fits. Maybe a job, a relationship, a worn-out identity. You're clear, you're ready. Then you tell someone suddenly, "Are you sure? That sounds risky. I wouldn't do it that way." And just like that, your clarity turns to confusion. Your inner voice gets drowned by external noise. Nature understands. The eagle doesn't broadcast its flight. It builds its nest high in silence, and when it flies, it simply flies. I've lived this. There was a time I felt the call for deep change. I didn't have all the answers, But I had something unshakable inside, that certainty you feel in your gut, not your mind. But before I acted, I spoke. I shared my plan, hoping for support. What I received was doubt. What if it fails? Isn't that too extreme? And I caught their fear like a virus. Has that ever happened to you? You were certain, until you let someone else's uncertainty in. That was the day I learned. Some battles must be fought in silence. Some decisions aren't meant to be discussed. They're meant to be executed. Not everything you feel needs to become words. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is protect your direction from interruption. The Stoics knew this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote not for approval, but for inner order. He wasn't broadcasting his thoughts. He was grounding them. He once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. You don't need to prove. You need to live in line with your values even if no one claps." Epictetus taught, "Act first and only speak if necessary. When you do the opposite, ego takes the wheel. Purpose gets lost in the noise." So, what now? First, examine your words. Are you speaking out of habit or from insecurity? Could you hold that decision a bit longer before releasing it into the world? Second, protect your process. Not everything you're building is ready for public opinion. Some truths need silence to grow strong. Third, make silence your ally. Don't isolate, but be selective. Sometimes knowing for yourself is enough, because yes, some of your greatest victories will have no audience. They'll happen in the dark, in your routines, in the quiet way you keep showing up. And when you do it right, there will come a day when you won't need to explain a thing. Who you've become will speak for itself. Bonus lesson: turn down the noise. We live surrounded by it. External noise, notifications, chatter, expectations. But also internal noise, doubt, pressure, comparison, the need to explain everything just to feel valid. Ever notice how exhausting it is? Feeling like you need to justify every move, narrate every small win, explain every intention, just to feel real. The problem? Noise can look like action, but most of the time, it's just distraction. And there comes a point where your soul runs dry, because posting, explaining, defending, it drains you. And sometimes the most healing thing you can do isn't to speak louder, it's to turn down the volume. You've probably been there, trying to change your life, your health, your mindset, your path. But instead of focusing, you find yourself sharing every step, as if it only counts if someone else sees it. But true change doesn't need an audience. It needs intention. Epictetus said it best. Don't explain your philosophy. Live it. And if you truly apply that, it will change your life. Because the more you talk, the less you do. The more you explain, the more you stall. The noise becomes the star. And you become a spectator in your own transformation. There's a simple story that captures this truth perfectly. Jai la fanchuyen tiep, neuko joan tiep theothi bunny ko the gui jemin via tiep nhe. In the last lesson, we learned to mute the noise, external and internal, to make room for what truly matters. Now we arrive at the final truth, the one that ties everything together. Lesson 13. If you do it for yourself, you don't need to. Say it, a monk once lived at the top of a mountain. Every day he would walk down to the village in silence to fetch water, never speaking, never explaining. One morning a young man asked, "Why don't you teach what you know?" The monk replied, "If I need to speak for it to be seen, then I don't know it well enough yet." And he kept walking. That's Stoicism in motion, because noise often emerges from insecurity. If you're truly at peace, you don't need to justify yourself. If you're clear in your purpose, you don't need to announce every step. If you're acting from within, that's enough. So what now? First, identify your noise. What are you saying just to feel better? What are you sharing out of habit or fear of being forgotten? Learn to distinguish between authentic expression and emotional leakage. Second, lower the volume. Mute the distractions. Step away from conversations that dilute your direction. Not every opinion deserves your energy. Not every comment needs correcting. And often, the energy we spend explaining is the exact energy we lack to act. Third, protect your process, not to hide it, but to preserve its integrity. Let silence become your sacred space, a place where your growth belongs to you, not to algorithms, not to applause. Yes, it feels strange at first, especially in a world addicted to narration, but over time, that quiet becomes clarity, it becomes peace, and what matters most will no longer need volume. It will only need direction. Now let me tell you one last story. Think back to the moments you truly changed. Did you broadcast them? Or did you just begin? Chances are your most defining transformations were born in stillness. No explanations, no announcements. Just a quiet decision, followed by steady action. Because when something comes from the depths of your being, it doesn't seek permission. It doesn't need validation. It simply moves forward. Someone once asked me, "Why are you so quiet these days? Why aren't you sharing anything?" And I answered, "Because this time I want the change to be mine, just mine." That moment set me free. I wasn't proving anything to anyone. I was finally keeping a promise to myself. Seneca once wrote, "The reward for a good action is having done it, not talking about it, not seeking praise, but simply knowing. You did what mattered." So I'll ask you, if your transformation requires someone else to notice it, is it truly yours, or have you handed it over to public opinion? Real change doesn't need to be hung on the wall. It needs to be lived. And that is freedom. So here's what you can do now. Change in silence, not because you're hiding, but because you're committed. Let time speak for you. Words can deceive, actions never do. And remember, you're not here to impress. You're here to evolve. If someone notices, great. If no one does, that's fine too, because if you're doing it for yourself, that's more than enough. This is the close, the final lesson, and maybe the most important one of all. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to defend it. You just need to live it, because when you truly do it for yourself, you don't have to say a word. It shows, and it changes everything you touch. My friend, if something in this video stirred something in you, if a sentence, a pause, or a moment made you think deeper, subscribe to Stoic Haven Way and join us on this quiet path of powerful transformation. Leave your personal commitment in the comments. Tell us, what will you start building in silence, or simply write, "I am a Stoic. From today on, I stop talking about it and start living it." That's how I'll know who the true Stoic warriors are, the ones who made it all the way. Here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss what comes next. And if you're ready for more wisdom, more clarity, more calm, click the playlist on screen. It's filled with tools to help you navigate life the Stoic way. Until next time, take care and keep embracing your inner Stoic, in silence, in strength, and always in truth.